alone.
Link. You are our final hope.
So, The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom trailer just dropped yesterday. This is one of the best trailers for the game by far that I've seen.
I think so. I think it's probably the best one so far too, yeah.
In everything that I had seen previous to this, it kind of just felt like, oh, it's just almost like a DLC for Breath of the Wild or something like that.
It really
right?
did, yes.
It didn't even feel the same as, say, Majora's Mask on the back of Ocarina of Time, where, yes, they're using the same assets, but it feels like a very different game. The feel, the core of it, the look and feel of it was so different, right? Mm-hmm. Every Zelda game keeps certain core elements that make it Zelda, but the setting, the art direction, these things are so different every time that you feel like, oh, I wonder where it's going. That's part of like the cool part of speculating about a new Zelda.
Yes, yeah.
And this lacked that in a lot of its presentation for the marketing leading up to it so far.
It seemed very much like the same game, just presented in a slightly different way.
Yeah.
Not different enough.
Yeah.
Up until this one.
And when this trailer dropped, it really drove home the importance to me for excellent trailer editing. And particularly with sound and music.
Oh, yeah.
Because I had never really felt that sort of like hype that I used to feel for a new Zelda game.
Yeah.
I can't even tell you how sick the E3, 2005, when they dropped the first trailer for Twilight Princess. I lost it. I was running around in my basement with my laptop going, no way, they did it. I was like freaking out. And even like the opposite reaction, let's say to like Wind Waker or something like that.
Yeah.
Even that was still a big emotional reaction. Like, oh, how could they do this? They betrayed me. Yeah. No. What about the trailer at the
demo.
E3? The demo. What about that? I've been betrayed. Betrayed. Nintendo, you betrayed me. Right? Like, it was always a big reaction. And part of that was I was a teenager. Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom just didn't seem different enough from what we had seen so far to really get me to feel like, oh, I have this new Zelda experience to look forward to. It kind of just seemed like it's going to be just more Breath of the Wild. That changed a little bit with, I don't know if you saw the gameplay demonstration they did where he's combining the things. He combines the rock with the stick and makes the hammer. And
which, physically, it's very interesting what they're like how they're allowing people to play with physics and with time in this particular game in order to achieve all kinds of different things. This is actually one of the things that was really fun about Breath of the Wild was trying to push the limits of the engine, right? Trying to figure out what this physics engine will allow for and won't allow you to do, trying to find out some way to like fly using the magnetic magnet and then stand on a thing and then try to separate yourself somehow and then launch yourself into the air. But this trailer leans super heavily into that function where it's like, look at all the crazy things that you can do in this game, right? And that gameplay demo did that as well. And it's not so much talking as much about the story, right? Which is so funny. The reason I played Breath of the Wild at first was the story part of the trailer. I'm like, the story looks sweet. And then it turns out the game doesn't have much of a story. It does in different ways, but maybe not on its face, right? Yeah. Whereas with this game, they're kind of like, not talking about the story as much, and they're really showing you how you can freaking mix a boulder with a stick. Like, you can reverse time, and you can, all the creative ways.
The experimentation
that you can play
aspect.
the game, which was what made Breath of the Wild so fun, was the experimentation aspect, right?
Right.
But when they bring that to be front and center, and instead of being like, this is a story game where you can do crazy stuff, now they're just saying, you can do crazy stuff, and there's kind of a story, too. It's harder for me to, get as excited about that one.
Sure. And it wasn't, and that's kind of what I was coming around to here was this trailer actually made me feel a spark of, oh my gosh, a new Zelda's coming out.
Yeah.
Like, whoa, wait a second.
Like next month.
Wait a second. I like Zelda. This is coming soon.
It's been 6 years.
It's been a long time.
Yeah.
And so that trailer was really well edited. I felt like it was really well put together. The music was fantastic. And the shot selection that they chose just really drove this momentum. Yeah. And so I got really excited. But my experience with Breath of the Wild was a little bit different from you guys, which is why I'm so surprised that we're having different reactions to this now.
I know.
But I was looking for a deeper sense of storytelling, which had been accomplished a bit by the predecessor to it, which is Skyward Sword.
Skyward Sword, yeah.
It went further with story than Zelda typically does. And I really liked that, and I wanted to see that continue.
Yeah.
And so my expectation was, I hope they do this, and it was really more about just how crazy can you come up with a way to like project yourself across the map to get into Ganon's tower and like skip half the game. You know, people who love experimenting like that, I think had a great time with Breath of the Wild. And that's not typically my
It was
play
kind of
style.
a surprise, right?
Yes.
You didn't realize how the game was going to allow you to be that creative in the way they mentioned, there's different ways to beat things, but you didn't realize there's thousands of different ways to beat things. Like more people are still today like finding out new ways to beat shrines. That's crazy.
Yeah, and so I actually replayed Breath of the Wild about 3 months ago, 3 or 4 months ago, right at the end of last year. And I have a totally new appreciation for it.
Yeah.
And largely it's probably because I wasn't going into it
the expectations,
hoping that this would be a story of a certain caliber that I was looking for. I don't know why I ever expected that from Zelda, because it's never really been the point. But it was what I was wanting. It was what I had hoped for. And I played it this time, and I just had an absolute blast with it. And I actually ended up doing a lot of things I hadn't done the first time around. A lot of the shrines I hadn't done. A lot of the armor, a lot of the things you can pick up. And I did a lot more experimenting and just playing in a different way than I typically do. And I gained a whole new appreciation for Breath of the Wild. And now I'm really excited for Tears of the Kingdom, because it looks like they're expanding on that in a big way. And on top of that, from what they did show story-wise in the trailer, it does look pretty cool. Like, there are some moments where they cut to like a slow motion shot of this character's face just looking really hardcore. And it was just like, dude, this actually feels like it's going to have that kind of impact on a story sense too. But I'm not going into it with that being my primary reason for playing it.
But I that's kind of the thing. It's almost like the tables have flipped a little bit.
Yes.
It's like, okay, this game is all about all the cool creative ways to do things, but there is still that hope that, well, maybe the story will surprise me this time.
Yeah.
Right? The trailer does give some hints. I mean, there's some stuff going on, right? You've got the beginning with whatever happens with Zelda, and then clearly she's like showing up again later on, and she's got the sword, and she's doing some stuff, right?
Yeah.
And it seems fascinating. And then as far as Link goes, it's like, what's going on with his arm, right?
Yeah. I did start with Ocarina of Time. So that was my first Zelda. And I loved it so much that I played it, and this is not an exaggeration. I've beaten that game from beginning to end more than 50 times.
50? Whoa.
More than 50 times. Because it was, for a while, the only game we had.
That's right.
So I just played it over and over and over. But it was also just unbelievable leap from what I had known a video game to be before that time. It's the first 3D game I ever played.
Yeah, it's a great game.
So I had this real strong attachment. Zelda was my favorite video game IP for many, many, many years, all through my teenage years for sure. What hooked me to Ocarina of Time in the first place was not its story necessarily.
Oh, sure, yeah.
It was the idea that I could go to another world in a video game. I think that's what I'm most looking forward to, in a sense, is how are they going to give me the same terrain of Breath of the Wild, but make it feel like I'm exploring a new world again?
Yeah, that's the question.
Because that's always been what is really the core, what's special about Zelda to me, is the exploration of another world. And how are they going to accomplish that with using a lot of the same terrain? I know they're doing the sky floating continent thing, right? Yeah. And that's one way to do it. But like you're saying, how has the world of Hyrule on the ground changed in such a way that it will be fun to explore and learn again too?
That was the most fun part about Breath of the Wild, was just
by
exploring.
far.
And then when you make a sequel to the game with the same mechanics but a map that's already been explored, you miss a lot. But I think that from what I've seen of these trailers, they have changed things, right? Like things look different. There will be new things in different places. Yeah, and that'll be fun.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to the game. I'm very excited for it. It's the first time I've felt in this dead soul of mine a spark of hype. The word hype has just like been this otherworldly concept of which
Yeah.
I have no idea what it feels like anymore until I watched that trailer yesterday, and it was just really cool to kind of like re-spark or relight that passion for Zelda again. Something I haven't had in quite a long time. And
cool.
it's never going to be the same as the E3 2005 drop where Shigeru Miyamoto came out on stage with sword and shield and you saw that trailer for Twilight Princess. I don't think that's ever happening again for me, but I'm at least really looking forward to the release of a brand new AAA game for the first time in years. And
that's something.
we're going to cover it in some fashion. So